He admitted responsibility for what happened to two young girls. What no one knew was that his confession was hiding the real killer. He claimed that he had discovered the bodies of the two girls in a forest park and immediately reported it to the police. No one doubted that the brutal offender would receive the only possible punishment, the death penalty. Meanwhile, during the 5 long years of investigation, the real perpetrator continued attacking young women. Only a fortunate coincidence eventually proved the father's innocence and led investigators to the true culprit, a minor at the time of the crime. This story takes place in the United States in the state of Illinois, in the small town of Zion, located on the shore of the vast and beautiful Lake Michigan. In the early 2000s, the town had a population of around 25,000 people, most of them white Americans. It was the embodiment of quiet, small-town America, a place where nothing ever seemed to happen. On May 8, 2005, Mother's Day, two young friends, 8-year-old Laura Hobbs and 9-year-old Crystal Tobias, left for a bike ride in a nearby forest park. They promised to return home by dinner, but they never did. That night, parents, police officers, and volunteers began searching the surrounding wooded areas. The next morning, Laura's father, 31-year-old Jerry Hobbs, came to the police and stated that he had found the girls' bodies. He personally led officers to the crime scene. Experts determined that the crime had been carried out with extreme brutality and showed signs of severe violence. The incident occurred the previous evening, around the time the girls were expected to be back home. That circumstance became critical in making Jerry Hobbs the primary suspect. Hobbs had long been known to local police. He struggled with substance abuse, lived an unstable life, and had a reputation for aggressive behavior. He had previously received a suspended sentence after attacking an acquaintance of his wife with a chainsaw, suspecting her of infidelity. Fortunately, no one was seriously injured during that incident. There were also rumors that Hobbs had been violent at home. His wife had forced him to leave the family house a few years earlier, despite having 3 small children. Although they never officially divorced, the family no longer lived together. 2 weeks before the tragedy, having just served another short sentence for a violent altercation, Hobbs returned to his former home and asked to start over. His ex-wife allowed him back. On the evening the girls disappeared, he was the first to go searching for them even before police and volunteers arrived. Hobbs was arrested shortly after leading police to the location. The following day, he gave a recorded confession. He was not physically mistreated, but why he admitted to a crime he did not commit would only become clear 5 years later after his release. He stated that he had encountered the girls in a clearing and attempted to bring them home. According to him, they refused, and Laura responded defiantly. He claimed he struck her, and when Crystal intervened, allegedly holding a small pocket knife, a struggle ensued. He said the situation escalated rapidly, but he was unable to clearly explain what happened next. From the beginning, the case was filled with contradictions, which dragged the investigation on for years. On one hand, there was his confession, his history of violence, and traces of blood on his clothing. On the other, his account lacked detail, and key evidence failed to corroborate his version of events. The pocket knife allegedly involved in the incident was never found. Most importantly, Hobbs denied any involvement in the sexual assault of the girls. However, forensic evidence indicated otherwise. Biological traces taken from the victims could not initially be analyzed, and investigators found themselves unsure how to proceed. The state prosecutor even urged the authorities to ignore these inconsistencies and move forward, certain the accused would eventually be executed. In 2007, a new forensic team re-examined the preserved biological material and successfully extracted DNA. The result was undeniable. The DNA did not belong to Jerry Hobbs. Despite this, the prosecutor concealed the new findings, and Hobbs remained in prison, still officially confessing to the crime. He spent another 3 years behind bars, socially condemned by his family and the entire town, until in 2010, the same unknown DNA profile was found in connection with another case. That year, a young woman was abducted and assaulted. She survived and provided critical testimony, leading to the arrest of 21-year-old Marina Jorge Avila Torres. Investigators soon discovered that he was linked to 2 additional similar attacks, as well as the murder of a female officer on a military base in 2009. Crucially, Avila Torres had grown up in Zion, Illinois. His DNA matched the evidence from the 2005 case involving Laura Hobbs and Crystal Tobias. At the time of the original crime, he was only 16 years old. Had Jerry Hobbs not falsely confessed, police may have identified the real suspect much earlier. Avila Torres was an acquaintance of Crystal Tobias's brother and knew the family, meaning he should have been part of the immediate circle of persons investigated. Instead, the rush to close the case, the father's confession, and prosecutorial bias allowed the real offender to remain free and continue committing violent crimes. But why did Jerry Hobbs confess? After his release and full exoneration in 2010, he stated that police subjected him to intense psychological pressure, depriving him of sleep and interrogating him for over 24 hours, which is against the law. Although he was not physically abused, the constant insistence that he was guilty eventually made him doubt his own memory. He spent 5 years waiting for what he believed would be his execution. Some journalists suggested that his mental limitations and substance abuse problems may have contributed to this false confession. His attorneys later secured nearly $8 million in compensation from the state of Illinois, though Hobbs personally received only around $6 million. Despite his exoneration and financial settlement, his family refused to reconcile with him. He lost stability, struggled with addiction, and eventually squandered most of the money. He had no permanent residence and was repeatedly arrested for drug-related offenses. In 2016, after escaping police custody, he received another 2-year prison sentence. As for the real perpetrator, Jorge Avila Torres was tried in 3 different states for his crimes. In December 2010, he was sentenced to 168 years in prison for 5 violent attacks, with eligibility for parole only after the age of 65. In 2011, he received the death penalty for the murder of a female officer. Finally, in 2018, he was transported to Zion, where he stood trial for the murders of Laura Hobbs and Crystal Tobias. In exchange for commuting his existing death sentence to life imprisonment, he confessed to the 13-year-old crime and received an additional 100-year sentence.